Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Amy Rose Herrick, who is America's Profit Building Specialist. Amy, welcome to the program.
Oh, it's good to be here, and I'm going to enjoy working with you today.
Yeah, I enjoy this. Right before we started talking, I was asking you where you're calling in from, and so you're calling in from the Virgin Islands, and you had the air conditioner on, and I said, well, I'm sitting here in the middle of April in Denver with snow on the ground. So what a juxtaposition that is, huh?
Yeah, and usually I'm only using the air conditioning in the office, folks. We live in indoor-outdoor life here with the doors and windows open all the time, but I try to silence the outside world.
Yeah, that's a little white noise.
We're homebound entrepreneurs now, but I've been doing the home office since 1993, so this isn't news to me. Yeah. This is really old hat.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Well, let's get into talking about building profit and give us a little bit of background on yourself. And I think that ties into, when you say, I am a profit building specialist, or I help entrepreneurs or business owners accomplish this. It really helps to frame up what led you to that realization at some point to say, here's an area of expertise that I'm good at, so now I'm going to help others with it. What was that journey in your entrepreneurial career?
I'm going to condense it way down. I started as an entrepreneur in grade school when my brother taught me how to pick up night crawlers and sell them to the bake shop. And I advanced many years later, into my adult life. I started out in the office environment with cost accounting, inventory control, which led into HR and dealt in some other areas. And then as I switched firms and would change positions and change responsibilities, I ended up through many different types of businesses over the years, learning many things, owning businesses, buying businesses, selling businesses, closing a second-generation family business. I've been over 3 decades working in a business environment, and if it touches money, that's what I do, and working with individuals. I have been blessed, and because of my mathematical mind and how I can usually look 4 to 5 steps ahead on estate planning, or how is this going to affect the income taxes, what is this going to do to the bottom line, I have been able to walk into about any business and look around and figure out, where you're losing $10,000, if you quit doing this, and it led to me working with a lot of people individually on little things. Why don't you do this? And it could really make a big difference. Why don't we work on that? You could do this. And so it has been a many decades long transformation, but it's allowed me to amass an enormous knowledge base. And I enjoy learning and sharing that, because you and I know so much, but if we don't share it, then it's not valuable knowledge to anybody but us. And I really believe that we have to uplift each other.
Yeah, and through that, you all of your introduction there with buying business, selling business, working with business owners, you start picking up your own methodology and systems and things that work. And you talk to some of the gurus out there, and many of the core things that you would recommend, there's nothing new under the sun. Maybe it's nothing, earth shaking, but from your perspective and your experience and examples, you're able to bring a unique light to the entrepreneurs you work with. So I always think that's really powerful too. So let's jump into what are some of the things you see when you work with an entrepreneur. Like, what are some opportunities, or maybe black holes in a business that maybe they don't really see because they're too close to their business, and you can come in and go, ooh, you know what? Let's start right here.
Well, one of the things I see people waste a ton of money on is advertising that doesn't give them an ROI, or return on investment, if that's not a term that you're used to using. I believe, and I have systems and things set up, that before you ever launch an advertising program, we should be able to know if it's going to make you money or it's going to cost you money. because you cannot dump your advertising dollars into something that is not giving you a return. And if I spend $5,000 and I get $5,000 in sales, I haven't made money, because all I have done is it looks even on paper, but it is the profit on what I sold on my $5,000 that matters. And if it's only $1,000, I lost $4,000 here in reality.
Yeah.
So I see that as one. I see people that struggle, and I'm going to pick a couple of the bigger ones. Should I rent or should I own my location? Well, I have some methods in working with that. Let's look at just not now, but let's break this out, even out over the next 10 years, because in many cases, you're getting conflicting advice. You should, you've got to own. Rent is throwing your money away. I don't necessarily believe that, because I've seen examples where their rent could go up another 35 or 40%, and they would still net be spending less and have less liability than they would owning a building. Those are two, and I'd say, calculating the cost of your employees. People think about the hard cost, your hourly, your FICA, those type of things when they're on the payroll. And you might even throw in their health insurance. But beyond that, I think there's another level of the soft costs that deal with what supplies or tools, equipment, what do they have to perform the functions. And then there's a third level, which is think of your overhead. If I have a space and I have 10 people sitting in it, and they each have how many square feet, I believe that's a cost of the employee, because if we have a contractor, they are not usually on site, and I don't have that location-based. And we can totally blow it on what the true cost of our employee is. We think this person is costing us $20 an hour. And when we really look around based on what is required for them to operate, well, maybe they're $60 an hour, and it completely changes the perspective. And that's just a few, because I don't believe a business makes mass profits in any one area. I think it's, maximizing every area that you can based on your dynamics. And different businesses have very different dynamics, but you see some of the same problems from business to business because they don't have classes on some of these things, or it just wasn't anything that showed up in your business plan.
Yeah, that's a big observation right there. Is you might be, just like Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. That this particular business might just be really killing in one certain area, but they're making 80% of their profit from that one area. But it's almost from the perspective of opportunity cost. If you're focused on that, where are you not focused on? And maybe someone from the outside could come in and shine a magnifying glass on a couple of the other areas and go, hey, as diligent as you are in this particular area and really making most of the profit, what if we just polished up right here and right there? And what if we brought one of your current team members in to focus on this piece right here because there's some missed opportunity? And now all of a sudden, you're really firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. And most of the time, we are focused on sales and revenue.
Yeah.
And sales and revenue drive every company. We know this. That has to have sales and revenue, and everybody has to be on board understanding how important sales and revenue are. But it doesn't matter how much your sales and revenue are if you are spending all of that and more, and you are ending up with a negative number, or I don't believe in a business breaking even as successful, because that tells me the owner is not getting enough comp out of the company for all of the risks that they're taking. And I think that we get, we had a great year, our revenue went up, 250%. That's great. Show me what your net is.
Yes. Yeah, because you can make, hey, we had $1 million year. But $1 million in revenue, but if you had 1.1 in expenses, that you're under. And you hear it so many times when you watch Shark Tank, or you have to know the numbers, and it sounds cliche to say that, but in reality, it's not your top line, it's the bottom net, whatever you want to call it. It's like what you can put in the bank, what you can do something with. And a lot of people don't realize that it's like what you just mentioned. Give me more numbers. I need another sales team. I need another sales person. But it's almost like having that bucket with holes in it. You're dumping more water in, and you feel good that you found a new water source. But then if the water's flowing out of the holes, you might need to pause on the new water and plug up as many of the holes as possible. Now, again, using that analogy, maybe you've got that bucket and you can't do anything about it, and you're not going to be able to get all the holes plugged, 100%, but you better work on as many of them as you can. And then when you add some more water or sales, now you're going to retain as much of it as possible. There's never the perfect scenario of everything. You never get all of the expenses, leakage fixed. But I think that that's something that sounds so common for us to say, and people kind of nod and go, yeah, makes sense. But it still happens all the time.
It does. And another place that I see, that goes through is replacement costs. Most businesses, I don't think, adequately plan for replacement costs, which goes back to, breaking even is never enough. If we go through, we can put, in the budget, look, if you have vehicles, they are going to wear out or you're going to replace them for whatever reason. What about your laptops, computers, printers, all of the stuff? What about the tools the guys are using if you have a production line? What about this machine over here? Everything has a life or a newer, better, even our cell phones. You look at these type of things. And I really have to work with business owners sometimes to not use the reactive approach. Oh, darn, we've got to replace this. Now, what are we going to do? How are we going to fit it in? To start looking at how much and, what if? I like round numbers because they're easy for me. What if we looked at what you were going to have to replace over the next 5 years, and it came out to be $1,000 a month that we have got to set aside in a reserves type of an account, can't touch it. So when these items wear out or when it's time, we can pay cash for them, or we can watch for the opportunity of a sale to pay less and get rid of the carrying cost and the interest and those type of things that suck the profit away, and you will never get it back. And I've tried to get this across to individuals as, you just bought a $25,000 piece of equipment, and you're paying 10% interest a year, which is an extra $2,500 for the next 5 years. You just paid $40,000 for that $25,000 piece of equipment. And I've looked at your books. You can't afford it. And that's why I say there's so many different areas that once a business can dial in this area, great. Now let's dial in another one. And it's a progression. And if you choose to sell that business, and I believe every business should be sellable from day one because you don't know the circumstances of when you want to let it go. Got to sell it quickly. And it makes a big difference because if you learn these, and we'll call it your baby business number one, this is your baby, you can still take that same concept and learning and apply it to the next business. And, many entrepreneurs are serial. They don't keep the same business. They grow it to a certain point, and we want to go grow and do something else.
Yeah.
Or, there's another opportunity. And sadly, I think from my observations, there are many businesses that are wonderful opportunities, but they may not have a lifespan of more than 5 or 10 years. And I'm going to give an example. Did anybody ever rent Blockbuster videos?
Yeah, sure did.
But it was a wonderful business for a period of time. It reached a point where its lifespan was over. It didn't make it a bad business. It just meant that it changed. And I used them because they were on so many different corners, and everybody, every grocery store was ready. The world changed. And many businesses, I think some businesses, they will hold on too long when that lifespan may be over. It's an observation.
And, from that example, I would say that, and again, we could get 10 business advisors talking about this case and then the response would be 47 points of view. But one takeaway to the Blockbuster/Netflix debacle was Netflix approached them and said, let's partner up. And they're like, nope, we're good to go. And they weren't willing to see a broad picture. They weren't willing to pivot and add in some new things in their same industry, not forsaking what they've been doing, but just kind of innovating. And so I think a business owner thinking about that case study could always be watching for ways, not that you're going to take the leap every time, because then you'd be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. But are there ways, maybe once a quarter, you sit down with your team and go, what are we doing right now, and could we be doing a little bit better? What could be coming down the pike? Could we partner with someone, some organization? Could we be? And I think that's something that really is, kind of goes high level, way more than filling up the holes in the bucket or making sure you have ROI, but it's making sure that, it's Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, was known for saying, I skate where the puck is headed, not where it's at, because if you target on where it's at, it passes you by.
Exactly. And I'm going to address this. I know I've got at least one business owner that is in our listening audience that you identify so closely with the business that you can't imagine your identity without it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. All of the talent and all of the experience and everything that you have is transferable. And along with that, that business is not you. And you are not that business. Yes, you have grazed it and you have loved it, and some of you have spent much more time with your business than you did with your family just because of the dynamics. But don't be trapped into thinking that you cannot be anybody or somebody else without that business, because you already are someone else without that business. You just don't always think of yourself separated from the business.
That now we're getting into, personal branding, life coaching, and that's such a big piece. Is at some point, the business owner, entrepreneur needs to, hypothetically punch out for the day. And you and I actually were chatting about this before we started recording this interview. At some point, you need to say, you know what, I did my nice full day. I got a lot done, and you could probably work 23 and a half hours every day. There's enough to do. There's enough that we can be doing. But at some point, you need to say, okay, I need to go and have that balance where my family, my personal interests, my hobbies need to be taken care of. So yes, to your point, you are more than your business. So that's something that you need to be all in when you're there, but then you need to be willing to go, okay, and now it's 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, whatever the case is. And now I'm all in and all there with my family or with my hobby that I'm doing or with my ministry or my church group. So I think that that's a really big piece. And you hear this, I guess I'll call it a gripe, but you hear this observation so many times where the spouse comes home and they say, you know what, you're here physically in the house, but you're really still mentally back at the office. So let's be here. And that's a big struggle, and it's so hard to overcome, I realize.
Yeah, and I think in many cases it comes back to cash flow, because that is one of the big things on the cash flow of business, that they never turn it off, or they're laying there at 2 o'clock in the morning with their eyes open, and it's the only thing that they have on their mind. And that can be a huge thing, because they can't shut the door, because, what do I do next? What do I do next?
Okay, so
and that's when you need to reach out and get some help. Yeah.
What if they reached out, got some help from someone like yourself? You could show them where the holes are, plug some of this up, show some of these unseen opportunities, and in a period of time of working with someone like yourself, maybe they go, you know what? I'm not making any more top-line revenue than I was, but doggone if I'm not putting money in the bank now. And they can almost breathe a sigh of relief, so that now they're laying in bed or going home going, okay, the business is there and we're doing good. We got a couple bucks left over at the end of the month. We don't have more month, than money. And that's a big thing there, because yes, maybe you are mentally not there because you got to grind it back to the office, but maybe you're grinding when you don't really have to.
Right, and I've worked with many business owners over the years that were, when I say, breaking even or very close, they struggled the most during, I would say, February, March, and April. And the reason for that is they come into January, which is a little off the holidays, but how many days does February have in it?
Typically 28.
Yeah, and there are a lot of businesses that, if you really look at it, They make their profit. By the time that you cover all of the expenses and everything else, they're making their profit during that last 2 to 3 days of the month. And you take away those 2 to 3 days in February, and it's painful because it's not there. And so they go in behind in March and trying to catch up. And that is another really good clue when you're looking at what some of the profitability is, to look and say, okay, well, right now, based on this model, you have got to be profitable 27 days of the month in order for you to break even. That means if we have a snowstorm, we have, an interruption in power, we have anything else that takes any of those days away, this is a major issue. What are we going to do for a backup plan? How are we going to overcome this? And that, again, can be another symptom on a business that they need some help to do something different. And again, that's a real eye-opener for some business owners, that they're really only making money a couple of days of the month. All the rest of the time, they're just covering the overhead. And it's painful. Yeah. But once you identify the problem, you can do something about it.
Yep. Really big. Well, I think we could probably talk for another 4.5 hours on this and still be, on our first breath of, scratching the surface. So tell us, Amy, what is a couple points that you would want to wrap up with? And then what's the best way that you would recommend that someone could reach out and learn more and connect with you?
Well, if there was a couple of points I could give someone, if you could do it well yourself, you would have done it by now. Yeah. And if it's not done, it's time for you to hire qualified individuals to come in and help you do it. Whatever it is, working on your website, rebuilding displays, I don't care. Whatever the case is, don't be afraid to get, and I said the word qualified, there's nothing wrong with your brother-in-law's nephew if he's qualified. But if he's not qualified, it may cost you more money and take you more time than it ever would if you got a professional. The other thing that I would say is that I see businesses that do not tap into the interns very often. Many times you have a lot of interns that, especially in the technology world, that this is something that is so simple for them, and they're fabulous and wonderful, and they need some of that job experience, and we're not tapping into that intern world that we should be. So, and the third one would probably be the barter networks. Barter networks can be wonderful for growing your business, and they can also be very costly. So you need to know when you're making a profit in barter and when you're losing money. But those are sometimes areas I don't see people working with. If you wanted to get in touch with me, you could look and see some of the courses where I touch on a lot of different, very targeted areas to help businesses make more money by going to the secret, SECRET, profits, profits.com/courses. And there you will see a variety of courses that I have available, and it also has my phone number on it. If you wanted to book a call, you could just shoot a quick little text and say, hey, Amy, I'd like to talk to you. And I have another link that I can send you to book that. So I can be found.
Excellent. Amy, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's great talking with you, and I will make sure that this direct link to the secretprofits.com/courses is right there so people can access it. Thanks a million for your time.
Thank you so much, and you have a blessed and wonderful day. The same to your audience.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.